Mophobic.
Mophobic.
Money mophobic.
He's afraid of motherfuckers.
Mophobic. Welcome to the Rewatchers on the Pod, where we are broadcasting live from underneath the Tycho crater on the moon, next to this big black thing that we hope is an antenna beaming this podcast into your ear holes. You're here with me, Tyler, and...
Tyler.
Gwen?
Justin.
Have you just adopted one name now?
That's what you did it first.
You didn't say
Why did I do that?
That's why I did it.
It's because we practiced the other thing so many times last week. They clearly did not pan out. I'm Tyler
We all
Harris.
went with it. It worked.
Yeah, that's okay. You know, or you don't care. No one's listening. Here we go. We watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I'm about to tell you in clear detail everything that happens. Here we go. Blackness, music, MG, motherfucking M. Space, music, desert, monkeys, tapirs, funny choice. Monkeys, tribes fight. Monkeys hide in their caves. A wild monolith appears. The monkeys are freaking out. And no, they love the monolith. Caress the monolith. Learn from the monolith. The Oppenheimer of monkeys weaponizes bones. And now they feast. The tribes fight again, and weapons are victorious. Then the monkey throws the bone into space, where it becomes a glorious space shuttle. And the dance of the spacecrafts commences. Of space travel. Fuck. Dr. What? Apparently in this universe, Pan Am also runs all of space travel. Dr. Haywood makes it through space customs. Dr. Haywood phone home. It's his daughter's birthday. I wrote this in terrible grammar. French people. Dr. Haywood is informed about the mystery of Clavius, but Jablomi is not at liberty to discuss it. A woman watches a judo competition on her flight while a stewardess navigates the world of zero-G waitressing. The dance of the spacecrafts commences yet again. Time for a space meeting. Now it's time for a space field trip. The same monolith has been found. Then the dial tone strikes. 18 months later, boys go to Jupiter, and we all know the reason why. There are 3 sleepy boys, 2 pilot boys, and 1 very advanced AI on board. It's Dr. Poole's birthday. Chess, drawing, running, all activities that you can participate on the space station. Hal wonders if they are having second thoughts about the mission. Hal thinks the mission is weird, then tells Dave an antenna is failing. Frank goes outside to remove the antenna, but the antenna is fine. Hal wants to reinstall the antenna and wait until it fails. Frank and Dave try to have a secret conversation while Hal reads their lips. Intermission. Frank goes out to fix the antenna, but flies off into space. Dave enters the pod to attempt a rescue mission. He catches Frank with his pod claws. The sleepers begin to die due to a computer malfunction. Dave wants Hal to open the pod bay doors, but Hal is afraid he can't do that. He reveals he knew about their plan. Dave is attempting to do what we call a pro gamer move by exploding himself through the side door. Now Dave is going to take Hal offline. Hal is scared and is trying to talk him out of it. Dave starts destroying Hal's mind. Hal sings daisies, drifts into oblivion. Dave views a briefing of the true nature of their mission and learns about the Tycho monolith. Now Dave is at Jupiter and beyond the infinite. A huge-ass monolith orbits around Jupiter. Dave gets sucked into the rainbow phantasmagoria in the monolith as reality and perception melt through each other, molding themselves into something brand new. He sees an old man version of himself in the Queen of England's bedroom. He eats a salad, then sees himself dying in bed. Then dying him points at a monolith and evolves into a giant space baby. Everything makes sense and no one is confused.
Accurate.
That's it. That's the movie. And they do it all in only 200 minutes. It's less than that. But I heard the original cut was 2001 minutes. But
Incredible.
yeah.
Snyder doesn't have his hands on that one yet.
I wish that we started to see Snyder cuts of other movies that he was never involved in. Oh, I can't wait to see the Snyder cut of
MGM just
Schindler's
gives them
List.
all the raw footage they have of every movie.
Yeah, so Gwen, this was your choice. Enlighten us a little bit more why you chose it. I mean, these are things that we think we should have seen, but why 2001 in particular?
I've been on a sci-fi kick lately, and I'd never seen 2001. It was my understanding that it was like Lord of the Rings for sci-fi movies,
Yeah.
generally, and I didn't know anything about it other than something about Jupiter, and then the one music that I'm not gonna sing with the timpanis. That's all I knew about the movie going in, and I am really glad that I didn't know anything about this movie before watching it.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic experience.
Cool. So this was you and Justin's first time, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, what are you guys' like just kind of initial impressions after having watched it?
Just real quick, I'm really glad I live in a time where I didn't have to watch this on VHS. Because that would have sucked real bad.
But you know what? It would have been rad to watch it on Betamax tape.
Yeah.
Preferred viewing still.
Side note, I had a Betamax,
Did you really?
and I broke it when I was 3 or 4 by putting Rescuers Down Under into it, and the tape was loose, and it got sucked up into the thing, and
Did you have a Betamax tape of Rescuers Down Under?
I did.
Whoa!
Until I fucked that shit up.
Can't believe they made a Betamax tape of Rescuers Down Under.
A hot take here. Rescuers Down Under is better than the first one.
But Joanna is terrifying.
In the first one? Yeah, Swamp Lady.
No, the lizard.
Oh, the lizard is joined. Yeah, I forgot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Way scarier than the actual bad guy.
I'm trying to remember being terrified in those. And which one I was more terrified of. Anyway, 2001.
Yeah. So yeah.
have you guys seen other Kubrick films?
No, but my reaction at the end of the film was, that was amazing. I don't understand what just happened to me. And now I want to watch The Shining, which I've never been interested in because I don't do horror.
Shining's not like the horror that
Yeah,
you're used to
I
seeing,
know.
though.
And
Yeah.
I've been told that, but I still was just not interested until today.
Yeah.
Fair
That's
enough.
cool.
I realized today that I've actually seen basically all of Kubrick's, like, the movies that he's well known for. I haven't seen his earlier films that he made, and I haven't seen Dr. Strangelove either. That's like the one that
I have also
I
not.
haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen Shining and Full Metal Jacket, and yeah,
Have you watched all of Clockwork Orange?
I have watched all of Clockwork
I have not
Orange.
seen
yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this one, like, Kubrick has a very distinct feeling with his films. Like when just the emotions that I have while I'm watching a Kubrick film, that it feels like there's nothing else like it, and this one is no exception to that.
Yeah.
So, and it's something that I really, it makes me really uncomfortable, but I also kind of like it. So I don't know how to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I mean, I'm amazed when I watch this movie how like modern it still feels a lot of the time. Like, just I mean, and this is another thing you can say about all of Kubrick's films. I feel like is he was such a meticulous like production designer and set designer and all that stuff. He was so obsessed with that like it really comes through. Like
Yeah.
every location in this movie is like really gorgeously shot, and like I don't know, I feel like every time you see a shot from one of his movies, it feels so intentional, which is not something you can say for very many directors, I don't think.
One other thing I picked up on with this one in particular, I know that Kubrick, like, he's so you see his work everywhere. Like, people have copied a lot of the stuff that he's done, his styles and everything. And it's like this one in particular was crazy to me to see the influences that he's had in other movies. Like, my son has been on a Star Wars kick for quite a while, and like some of those shots, like of the shuttle coming into the bay to dock, like that, George Lucas took the Imperial shuttle coming in like right from this movie, basically. Like, everything, the way it's lit up is just the exact same. Like, I was thinking of the landscape shots from Breaking Bad that everybody raves about.
Sure.
Like, the first third of this movie, the opening act, all of those landscape shots and stuff, like, that's what that is. And man, it's great. It's gorgeous.
Was Kubrick in that group of like the buddy directors with Spielberg and Lucas and Coppola?
Oh, like the Zoetrope?
All the ones that were like, Lucas, what the fuck are you doing making this space movie?
I don't know, honestly. I know that he was friendly with Lucas, but the only reason I know that is because at one point he went to Skywalker Ranch or whatever and was like, I need to show you my favorite movie, and showed him Eraserhead. So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he was part of that. I think he may have been a little older than them, but I'm not sure. I don't know. But yeah, definitely at least friends.
So he was you. You just
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Gwen, what were your kind of like initial thoughts on that? Any like big picture stuff that kind of struck you?
In terms of like the genre of sci-fi, it felt very different in that instead of asking big questions, it seemed to be proposing big answers that I don't quite grasp, which felt very different but very cool. But aside from that, I was really caught by details, like the furniture in the space station versus that room, which apparently is decorated in the neoclassical way. I looked it up. Like, I can't stop thinking about the difference between the furniture in the space station and the furniture in that room. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I'm very stuck on that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Don't know what it means, but I like it.
Yeah. But it certainly feels important.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And you haven't read the book, you said, right?
I have not, no.
Which is shocking. Anyone read the book in there?
No, I haven't.
So,
no, and I haven't read any Arthur C. Clarke, apparently.
What else has he done? I don't remember what other works he's written.
2001 is his big one. I think otherwise
to cut you off.
No, you're good.
he did mostly short stories. Sorry, go ahead, Tyler.
I can't remember. I don't know what he's written. Have you guys, has anyone like
Childhood's
looked up the
End.
differences?
I haven't. No, I didn't.
Okay, so I watched this with someone I know, who I will not name because I'm being better about that. And they had read the book. Were telling me all the differences about it. So apparently, at the end, he doesn't really like. I'm trying to remember if he actually goes to Jupiter or there's like a portal to Jupiter or something. He ends up on like an abandoned space station, and that is where all the trippy stuff starts happening. And I think he has like these visions. I could be butchering this. This was a while ago. I think there's like either some visions or something, or he speaks with those aliens or something. And basically, what they do is they like rebirth him. They create him to be like this super alien human hybrid that is on a like omnipotent level of thinking and understanding, and then they send him back to Earth to essentially fix Earth. And that's what that like ending of him floating as a fetus above the Earth is supposed to represent, without going into that, because I'm sure Kubrick was like, I don't want to do that.
The little bit that I read about it said that in the book, it's clear that the baby is going to detonate harmlessly the nuclear weapons that are in orbit, which is when the bone is thrown up and you see the spacecraft.
Gotcha.
That is like nuclear weapons. So Stone Age weapon to nuclear age weapon.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because there's a sequel to the book. There's a book sequel and a movie sequel.
I think there's 3 book sequels.
Are there 3? Okay. Well, they didn't make movies of the other ones because 2010 sucks ass. It is not directed by Kubrick. I'm not going to throw this guy under the bus, but I'll say I don't recognize his name. But what I do recognize is the 3 top billed actors in it are Roy Scheider, who's the detective or the sheriff in Jaws, and John Lithgow and Helen Mirren. So,
You know,
Where's Mitchell?
I might watch that.
I mean, you might as well. It's a thing. It's not as long.
Will it ruin 2001 for me, though?
doubt it. I doubt there's enough actual crossover that you will say, this feels like 2001 and is bad. I feel like it'll be like, this is just this bad movie.
We'll just pretend it's in a different universe or something.
Was John Lithgow ever in like a movie that was good?
I mean, he's
Interstellar,
been in decent
geez.
movies.
Was he in?
Like,
Oh yeah,
he's
he was in Interstellar. I totally
Yeah.
forgot about that. Yeah.
Let's actually
Yeah,
talk about
let's-
that.
I was gonna say, that's a good segue.
Yeah, because I feel like so much of Interstellar's there's so many nods from Interstellar 2001. While not being, I mean, I think of them as totally different things, and trying to accomplish two very different things. But you can definitely tell that 2001 was an influence on Nolan. Do you guys have any like thoughts on that, or things that you're thinking about in particular along those lines?
I remember watching an interview with him when that movie was coming out, and he was talking about kind of 2001 kind of being like a weight on him while he was making it, because he knows that those movies run in a parallel, and he didn't ever want to cross that. He never wanted to, like, he wanted to pay homage to it in certain moments, but never, he felt like his choices were directly impacted by that movie just existing, even though the story isn't necessarily because of 2001. It's like there's some similar ideas going on that he felt like he needed to be very careful where he treaded, I guess.
Yeah. I think it is worth noting too, Christopher Nolan was one of the main people who worked on the 50th anniversary re-release of 2001, which was basically, it had been remastered, and they went in and took all of that out and basically just made sure that the film looked as crisp and clear, while removing a lot of the stuff that people had done after Kubrick. And it's great. That's the one that I saw in theaters last year or 2 years. Time doesn't matter. But yeah, and it's really amazing. But yeah, I think that's, I don't know how it could not have been a huge like thing in his mind the entire time.
And
he was
I
making
think that final scene is, well, not the final scene, but like towards the end, that sequence where he goes into that other dimension, I guess, is very kind of falls timeline wise. Also similar with the final act of 2001. They're both very trippy moments, and I think. I remember seeing it and thinking, like, wow, that was a little more tame than I was expecting that sequence to be, which I think was probably the right choice, because I think if you went too crazy with it, it would be too much of him doing exactly what I said that he didn't want to do, is be too much like 2001.
Yeah.
But they both had that moment of, like, just, I don't know, just a man lost in something much bigger than humanity at that point.
Looking at Interstellar now, that moment feels so much better having seen 2001 Space Odyssey. It just feels, I don't know, more rounded out for some reason now. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, do you feel that way because you feel like it's informed by something, or?
Just knowing that, just having seen this part of the sci-fi legacy, I guess.
Okay.
And seeing the inevitable inspirations.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it is interesting. I do think it's funny, like, if you think about a lot of people's complaints about Interstellar that I heard when I saw Interstellar, was like, it's so loud. And like,
Whenever someone, okay, fuck those people who say,
I am with you. Jesus.
sorry, I hate hearing that after every Christopher Nolan movie comes out. Fuck you if you're one of those people.
But I did want to say, I doubt that anyone walked out of 2001. It was like, too much noise, too much sound in that movie.
There was the one when the monolith sends the signal to Jupiter.
Yeah.
That is quite loud.
Yeah, it is.
Which makes it stands out more in the movie when there's been so much silence, and there's so much silence after, which I really appreciated and added to it wasn't quite tension, but something like that of the moments where it was used.
Yeah. Well, and I think in 2001, there's a sequence that always makes you feel just this profound dread, and it's when Frank is falling through space, and it's just dead quiet, and his fucking corpse is just spinning through space, and it's so quiet, like, it's so fucking quiet, and then Dave, like, just his, like, resolve, like, I'm like, that would not be me, but that's why I'm not in fucking space, and they're like, two guys in charge for this whole time, you're one of them, is because they would, like, take my blood pressure and be like, did you do anything today? And no! Like,
I loved how stoic Dave was.
Yeah.
Like, how robotic and Like, he has no emotional reaction to anything that happens to him, except, you know, he's a little taken aback when he goes through a space portal. I really liked that, in contrast with Hal's last moments in particular.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I've totally forgot about that. Hal's dying moments are like so unnerving.
Let's talk about that, because it is like, it's mentioned so many times prior to that in dialogue, which is, you don't get a lot of dialogue in this movie. That's not, you know, it doesn't happen very often, but they mention multiple times like, oh, these HAL 9000s, they never make a mistake. And like, I just think about, I mean, putting myself in Hal's microchips for just a moment, like, I just think about that, like, being a being that has thought, that can make decisions like that, and knowing that you can never make a wrong decision, and then seemingly making the wrong decision. Like, he has his own, like, I'm calling it a he. Hal has their own, like, existential crisis in those moments, and like, him just going out singing Daisy, fucking, like, watching it this time was like, Jesus Christ, man, it's like fucked me up. But
After pleading the entire time, like, I'll be back to normal, like, just in that monotone voice, like,
I'm dying, Hal.
Yeah, the song was the most modulation in his tone that we ever got.
Yeah.
Right at the end.
Have you guys seen the video where someone dubbed John H. Benjamin doing those lines over Hal?
Oh yes, I have seen that.
So good. Oh my gosh.
Oh man, if I had an AI, I would absolutely want H. John Benjamin to be that.
I could do that, Dave.
It just makes me think of that can of beans in Wet Hot American Summer.
I have not seen Wet Hot American
Oh,
Summer. And that's like the third time you've referenced the can of beans to
Oh
me.
God, can of beans, so good. Wet Hot American Summer. But yeah, let's talk a little bit more about this movie. There you go.
Way to go.
No, but let's talk about Dr. Haywood too, because I think it's interesting that, like, that section of that movie feels like, more than anything else, kind of establishing the state of the world and that the state is in, and this interesting, like, definitely not utopian, but like, obviously this somewhat cooperative future between nations where we've expanded into different parts of the globe. We still just have a bunch of like air hostesses that are now just in space. But
no female characters, by the way.
Yeah, no female characters except for there's like the scientist who has what, 2 lines, 3 lines?
and asks him if he's changed his mind about having a drink.
Yeah,
that lady,
and then is asked about her husband.
yeah.
Yeah, that character. Which is funny. They pick 3 of those ones as scientists, but the only one who delivers any meaningful dialogue is the man. Fuck it. I don't know. I will say, one of my favorite parts about that section is the woman who's on the ship with him that is just watching a karate competition, like on the screen.
Who also seems to be a stewardess
Yeah, weird.
She's on break.
on break or something.
But it was, and I think it's because we just spent like another 45 minutes talking about part A of Twin Peaks last week. But immediately what I thought of was Sarah Palmer watching the boxing match in her home. And I was like, is this just a dumb David Lynch joke that he thought would be funny? Is putting, I don't know. It's dumb. It's very obscure. It's probably not.
That's
but I think
very
it's so
far
weird.
apart from each other, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Oh, yeah. You mean The Return? And
Yeah.
what do you mean?
So you're saying he's making his David Lynch reference when he made 2001?
No, I'm saying David Lynch is making a reference to 2001.
Okay, gotcha.
we have transcended time.
I think time matters a little bit. I still understand it as a tool. Like, I get it.
As a tool. Oh man.
But yeah, I just think that stuff is really interesting, and I think it's interesting to think about like sci-fi world building in the context of the time it exists in, because that still smacks a lot of like the 60s to me. You know what I mean? A lot of those like views and things that they're like, this is probably what things will look like in 50 years or whatever.
Had that Pan Am accident not happened yet by the time this was filmed?
I honestly don't know. That's a
What
good.
Pan
I
Am
think that was in the
accident?
70s.
Was it?
I'm trying to
I
remember
think.
exactly what happened. Didn't like the whole roof get ripped off?
Something like that.
And
Yeah.
I can't remember if a lot of
It
people.
was really bad for the airline industry.
Yeah. Good for safety standards though.
I was in 77, so yeah, quite a while after this.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had to be like you wouldn't put that as your.
Yeah. I mean, if
spaceship.
that had happened before, then when he got on the they would have put on like little wings like they do on Delta.
Were they Hilton? Were there Hilton cubicles at the space station? Did I see that? Was that
Howard Johnson? I think it was like I know Howard Johnson's name is on one of them.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a Hilton one. I think
there might be a Hilton one, yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting.
Something I really love about the way that space is portrayed in this movie is how clean everything looks. Just the style that he has in this movie. Like I'm thinking of the way that Ridley Scott shows space versus this,
Yeah.
and how different they are. And like you can kind of get that from Lucas a bit as well, kind of the clean lines and everything. But like this is grounded in a potential future Earth reality instead of a galaxy far, far away or whatever. But yeah, I just really love the style that's there, and it's so. Again, going back to the influence stuff, like I feel like that's kind of where we are with space right now as well. With a lot of the new games that are coming out or new movies or whatever, they kind of still have like we're in this sort of like clean aesthetic for space as well, which is I like it a lot. SpaceX is doing that kind of stuff right now,
Sure.
making it sexy or whatever. But yeah, really
I
cool.
wonder how much that correlates with the return of like mid-century modern and those sorts of clean lines and the look back at what was not retro but is now retro futurism in design and sci-fi.
Yeah, I was thinking about that at the last launch actually. Well, the manned launch when they're going up of like their new spacesuits, and I'm like, this is so different than like anything that's like. What is the designer like when you're trying to design something that's functional? Because I feel like that's what all the previous ones had been. It was like we just need functional. We don't need it to look like anything. Yeah. And that's so weird to just like think about someone like, nah, this spacesuit needs to look sexy. Like,
Well, it's a product now. They're
Yeah.
investors. It's got to look nice on the YouTube streams.
Yeah. Like if you're a designer and someone comes to you like, we need a spacesuit that fucks. He's like, I literally have that in my drawer right now. Here it is. Yeah, that stuff is really
more
interesting.
people running into those sexual tension problems on the station. Okay.
Well,
There
that's.
was-
Oh, go ahead.
I read about that on Reddit today. Apparently, it's really hard to get it up in space. So
Okay, but there
apparently
was
these are the things I
a,
need not to know.
a headline that I laughed about posted on r/Sappho and her friend about how all the crew members to Mars are going to be female so they can't have sex. Because women never have sex with each other. But just in that case, getting it up
I mean,
won't be a
want
problem.
women to have
That
sex
sounds
with
like
each other.
that's
That's
a
how you do it.
solution.
Yeah, I'm struggling to
That's
see
like
the problem. Like,
sexual
it's
tension?
obviously.
We're just going to
I
embrace
just
it.
wondered, like, who was like, I have a solution?
I mean, it's a room full of men. Gwen, you know this.
Yes, okay, I do.
It's
I
in a
know
room
this.
full of men.
And then there's the one guy
And
in the
none of them
corner
have ever
going,
been to prison.
Uh-huh.
Oh man.
Oh man, yeah, that's good stuff. Anyways,
Yeah, I want more answers of weird shit that no one wants to talk about in space. That's what I want. And I mean,
I'm sorry, are we talking about women having sex or spacesuits?
I'm talking about all of it.
Okay.
I'm talking like
Women having sex in space.
like giving
with
like
their
giving birth in space. You know, I need a more detailed description of like I've seen it and I've seen the toilets. I want to know how that actually works. Like, is there a latch? Is there
Well,
like
as far as like giving birth in space, this movie gives you a pretty clear answer. Your baby's gonna be fucking huge.
There's no a child that small.
Station.
Gravity doesn't have as large of an impact, and so it just expands.
No
It's
its
contraction.
bones aren't
baby.
solidified yet, so it just kind of
Its bones separate and just weird tendons connect them. So it's just this weird spaghetti baby.
Oh, shit. Well, like, wait, would that? I wonder if that would be a thing because, like, your skull doesn't fuse, right? So what does it just like slowly start going, and like your head just becomes huge because the cartilage is like, oh shit, we gotta move, now heal, and like.
Is that a problem with the Belters in The Expanse?
Yeah, that's essentially what's in The
that's
Expanse,
true.
except
Yeah.
nothing about the skulls. I think they fucked it up there.
Well, no, they got big heads.
They do have big
Yeah,
heads?
they have big heads.
Oh, I thought they just had long bodies. They're like
Long
really
bodies
lanky.
and big heads.
I didn't know they had big heads.
Yeah.
Apparently, I need to read more.
Long bodies and big heads.
Space.
Sex in space. Yeah, we haven't really talked much about the beginning of this movie. We're kind of doing 2001 in reverse. We're making
As it was meant to be discussed.
exactly, yeah. But yeah, what are do you have any thoughts on the beginning of this? I think it is like a pretty gorgeous, like we've kind of already touched on that a little bit. It's really beautiful. I think it's one of those things where it's like you could easily pull that out of this movie and it would be its own thing. It's got this very great beginning, middle, and end that could be a commentary on mankind itself, just as it stands. But obviously it benefits from being a part of the whole. But I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that stuff. I'm always alarmed by the eyes of the monkeys because it's so clearly men in suits. When you see their eyes, it's like, oh, Jesus. Yeah, this is, of course, these aren't real monkeys.
That's what makes you forget.
Yeah, what's
How did they get these?
what else about
Oh,
how long was he out there?
Kubrick's a madman. He just puts a monolith in a monkey's domain and just sits for hours.
As a true artist would.
Little did he realize the power he actually had, or the prop department had.
Putting a monolith in a monkey's domain is a figure of speech that needs to have meaning and weight behind it in society today.
All right, we're going to make it happen on this podcast with our vast
I gotta
influence.
make that happen in the next interview. What's your biggest weakness? Sometimes I just put the monolith in monkey's domain.
Your interviewer will be so intimidated that there will be no follow-up questions.
But you know how that is, right?
I mean, I feel like that's a model for good management. Like, I gave them the thing that empowered them to be better workers and fucking kill the competition, literally, with weapons. But yeah, that section's great.
That's exactly
I think we've covered everything about it, honestly.
Oh, I always get I get this. This probably makes me really weird, but like I get very kind of like not emotional, like teary eyed, but I get like very emotionally stirred by anything that does a half decent job of representing like really ancient things and ancient unknown things.
That fear of the dark scene kind of got me.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like anytime someone shows like the origins of man, I'm fucking in. Like I like even stuff that's like even like biblical stuff, like which is not something I like necessarily subscribe to anymore. But like even still, someone showing that and going back, I'm like, because I mean. This is a whole nother subject, I guess, but like, I mean, I believe some of those things are based on real events, right? Like historical events. So it's like anything showing that's like even like Noah, even though that's like a very like fantasy thing. Sure. Seeing like the thing I think of for some reason is that in Noah when he is like blessing him with the priesthood, so he wraps the snake skin of like when Satan was a snake. Like around his arm, and that gives him like the power to like, like that fucking shit is awesome. Just stuff like that. So like anything like with like just these early I guess these are supposed to be like Neanderthals, I guess. I don't know, some like early man, I guess, and then just like that spark of evolution. That's why I like Prometheus, even though that movie kind of sucks ass.
Yeah.
Like I still like Prometheus because of those feelings, like watching it, it's like, oh, okay. Except it kind of ends in an unsatisfactory way. But
So I learned a new term related that some people criticized this movie of being a shaggy god story, which is apparently a thing.
A shaggy god story.
A shaggy god story where I guess it's a minor science fiction genre where science fiction takes a Bible story and makes it science fiction. So like this a little bit, or even the funny movie with the sad robot, the funny book with the sad robot.
Hitchhiker's Guide?
Yes, that's a Shaggy Gog story in the later series. But yeah, I didn't know that was like an actual genre.
Yeah, I didn't
and
either.
now
I
that
never
I
heard of
discovered
that.
it, I want to read more.
Yeah.
Why is it that people get upset about that? Just because people get upset about
Well, I'm sure
using
people get upset
biblical
about it because
stuff?
people get upset about it. But that
Right.
was a criticism of this movie.
I got it. Yeah, got it.
Interesting.
You picked a genre. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
And
one
I
of
don't know
those,
if that qualifies either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things, kind of like in reference to that. I feel like it's probably I love Joseph Campbell so much, mostly because there are things about this. No matter what you want, there's nothing original. Like I think it's my favorite thing about the idea, like Joseph Campbell's ideas. It's like none of this is, you're never telling an original story. Like all of this is, the best stories are just things that come from an honest place within us, and they're things that we can all relate to. And it's something that I can't explain. I don't want to explain, but I feel like that's something that 2001 does, is it touches these very specific, like universal feelings that we have, and tells them in this big, huge way that I think at some point in your brain just accepts. It's like, I'm trusting the feelings I'm having other than like my actual understanding of this piece of work. And that, to me, those are like, to me, the really magical moments in art and in storytelling. And I think that this movie does such a great job. And I think Kubrick does such a great job with that. Because if you look at a lot of Kubrick's movies, almost all of them, I don't know if I can say almost all of them, a large percentage of them are based on previously written material. The Shining, 2001, Clockwork Orange is a book.
Eyes Wide Shut is a documentary, right?
Okay, yeah, exactly.
I
Eyes
think
Wide
Dr.
Shut.
Strangelove is as well.
Yeah, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's not. It has a completely different title, but I think it's a book as well.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, and but I think that the thing you can say about his adaptations is he never felt bound by them by any stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, Stephen King famously hates The Shining, and made his own in the '90s, and man, there's like this vindictive joy that I get from watching Stephen King's The Shining and just being like, oh, it sucks. It's so bad. But I think that Kubrick was able to use those kind of like as jumping off points and to basically boil those down thematically to things that he then blew up to epic proportions and really featured in his work, which I think is super cool. And I wish that was more prevalent. But yeah, I don't know.
He doesn't over-explain things. Like,
No.
Which, like I described the actual ending of that book earlier. It's like that. Like, I mean, maybe you guys got it. Maybe I'm dumb. But like, the first time, I mean, any of the times I had to have it explained to me. Like, I had not done my research or anything, so like, I was still having interpretations of the ending that were my own. Which I think is kind of his intention, because it's like, it's very vague.
Yeah,
And-
no, he refused. He would talk, Stanley Kubrick would talk about it like in terms of general plot points, but would not say this is what it means, because he wanted the audience to create that for themselves.
Yeah. Which has anyone here seen Room 237?
Mm-mm.
It's a documentary that was made a few years ago, but it's just all about the intense fan theory community around The Shining, and how there are people who believe that The Shining is actually a direct representation of the Holocaust or of the genocide of the American Indians. And it's cool to hear them tell, like, beat for beat, like, this is why I think that in this shot and this thing, and a lot of it is the production elements that we know Kubrick was so fascinated with. And also, particularly with The Shining, he had also gotten very into subliminal like marketing and stuff with that, and like studying how people made commercials, and it's when they were making Coke commercials where they'd hide the word sex in the ice cubes on screen, and that kind of stuff. And he does a ton of that in The Shining, but I do think it's insane to me. There are people who've just spent 30 to 40 years of their lives thinking about The Shining, analyzing The Shining. And I do wonder, is there a community like that for 2001? Or there's very specific ideas and stuff. I'm sure there are. But yeah, that stuff's so fascinating to me. It's so interesting. But yeah, any other thoughts on 2001?
Can I read this very critical sentence that I want to flip around on its head?
Yes.
So this is from Wikipedia. Historian Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr. deemed the film morally pretentious, intellectually obscure, and inordinately long, a film out of control. And yes, but I feel like it's a good thing.
Yeah, I know, yeah. That sounds like a ringing endorsement.
It's wacky and wild, and I didn't get it, and it was amazing.
Yeah. Was Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr. just mad because it opened the same weekend as Cannonball Run, which he funded a little bit?
Yeah.
It's this fucking bullshit. We're in a Burt Reynolds movie. Where's everyone? Yeah, that's awesome. Any closing thoughts from anyone? I mean, I feel like we could probably talk about this for a longer time, but I don't know.
Do you have recommendations on if this was somebody's first Kubrick movie, Gwen?
Why am I getting called?
Where do you go to next?
I mean, The Shining is a great choice.
It is October.
Yeah, I think that spiritually, The Shining and 2001 are fairly close together. Just like from filmmaking perspectives, they're obviously very different. And you're going to see some. Well, I was going to say you're going to see weird shit in The Shining.
Blood out of an elevator. So
yeah. So there's that. I would say another one, if you just want to see Kubrick's breadth and ability, Dr. Strangelove is probably one of the later Kubrick movies I saw, but it is really fucking hilarious, shockingly hilarious and very grim. But Peter Sellers plays 3 characters in it, I believe. And it's really incredible. So those are probably the ones I'd recommend, I guess.
I agree.
if you have
I think The Shining definitely is probably the next follow
I
up.
would recommend as well.
I
would say stay away from Clockwork Orange probably until.
that one's not for me. Period.
But Full Metal Jacket is probably where I'd go after that.
That was my first Kubrick movie, and I still don't know if I like it or not.
I have mixed feelings about it for sure.
Well, I think that Full Metal Jacket is, well, I mean, like Dr. Strangelove, but even more so, definitely so much more politically charged, because those events are still close in a way, which is, that is, I think that is a hard thing. That's a hard thing for me about Full Metal Jacket, at least, is, with 2001, it's much easier to go in with no real expectations, but you're bringing a lot of baggage to Full Metal Jacket, probably regardless of.
I guess I misremember. I mean, I just thought about this. Is that I guess is that thing that's kind of lost in modern Hollywood? I guess is in both. I mean, in all the movie we just fucking watched, 2001, and Full Metal Jacket. As well. Oh, actually, I don't want to spoil anything. Never mind. I'm going to stop talking. Yeah, never mind. Fuck that. Justin, were you going to say something about
I was going to say, I know this movie has a reputation, but I genuinely love Eyes Wide Shut.
I haven't seen it yet.
I think it's great.
I think it's a really great movie.
Is it a hard watch?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of sex, so. That's
yeah,
hard.
I thought
for you.
I was under the impression. I honestly don't know much more about it than it has to do with sexual addiction, right? Is that
kind
part of it?
Sort of. It's about the elite, and it's. Oh, man, I don't know how much to say.
Yeah.
If you're okay with just watch Eyes Wide Shut.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, I was just wondering because I was under the impression that it was kind of intense, depressing sex, like
I mean,
like not intense in like a oh my gosh they're really going at it, like intense in like a it gets maybe a little violent and there's
oh, man.
fucked up shit being hallucinated. I don't know, like
Maybe it's been too long since I've seen Eyes Wide Shut. I don't remember there being anything particular.
do I need to?
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm asking, because obviously I should see it. What type of mood do I need to be in to go to feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this now?
I would say as long as you're not already super bummed out or horny. If you're horny, don't watch it. I'll say that.
Okay.
It will be.
You won't get through it.
It will be. Yeah, so I mean, I think if either
That's all I need to hear.
if
That's
you
it.
can check both those boxes, I think you're good.
I need to lay down for a while.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean, I have not seen The Killing is a really early Kubrick movie that's pretty great. It's a very noir-y thing. It's definitely like one of those things that feels, I mean, it's still good. He's still a very good filmmaker, but it's not as distinctive as some of his other work. And I've never seen Barry Lyndon. It always just looked incredibly fucking boring to me, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah.
Cool.
Any other? I think that we've talked about everything in 2001. We solved 2001.
Yeah, I still have very big feelings that I don't have words for. So I'll text
much-
you all at midnight.
That's pretty much how I feel about all of Kubrick's movies.
Yeah.
I have something. I'll share in recommendations because I don't have any recommendations.
Okay.
But I got something. I think you've seen it before. That
Okay.
I have that I just remembered about Jupiter. It might be Venus. Might be both. We'll find out.
Oh,
in
shit.
recommendations.
And on that cliffhanger, I guess I'll tease next week. I guess we can tease
Yeah.
next week. So I chose the movie that I feel like I should have seen for next week. And in keeping with just the real bangers we've had, I mean, we watched Die Hard. We watched what the fuck did we Psycho. Watched Psycho in 2001. All hallmarks of cinema. We're gonna watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High next week, which is a film from 1982 starring Sean Penn. And the reason that I'm choosing it is just because I love teen comedies, particularly from that era, and have never seen that one. But it's directed by Amy Heckerling, who also has not directed a ton, but directed Clueless, which is probably one of my favorite teen comedies of all time, and written by Cameron Crowe, who also wrote Say Anything and Almost Famous. Both movies I love, both great coming-of-age stories. So this feels like sort of a blind spot to me. We'll see if it's good. I don't know how it's aged. I do not know any of that, but we will see. So Fast Times at Ridgemont High next week. And if you want to reach out to us at all, you can email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram or Twitter at rewatcherspod. And we'll see you after this break. Welcome to the recommendation section of our podcast, which is called Rewatchers on the Pod. I'll start with some recommendations I have this week. The first one I'm going to recommend is an album I've been listening to a lot over the last couple weeks, I guess. It's one of those albums that like I don't feel like I would normally like, but something about it is great. It's the album Floral Prince by Field Medic. And it's I don't even know how to describe it. Lo-fi emo country for sad boys, I guess. It's a very fall feeling album for me that just feels achy in all the good places. I honestly don't know if I'd recommend it to anyone in this room, but I don't know. It's good. I like it. The other thing, I've been playing a video game this week on my Nintendo Switch called Hades. And I got Hades. Have you been playing it?
I haven't played it, but I've watched somebody
Okay.
play it, and I'm glad you're going to talk about
Is
it
it really
because
that good?
it's
Because
I love it.
I feel like it's been
really
out for a
cool.
while, right? On PC.
So it's been in early access since 2018. I got it when it released on Steam probably about a year ago, and I've probably put like 15 or 20 hours into it there. But it didn't have an ending. Anyways, it's basically the concept of Hades is that you are the son of Hades who is trying to escape from Hades, and you basically have to fight your way out. But it's a roguelike, so you're basically starting, it's...
Is this a metaphor?
Yes. Well, Sisyphus is in the game, which is fun. But I think the cool thing about Hades, first of all, it plays beautifully. Like it kind of reminds me of Dead Cells. It's like Dead Cells and Diablo had a baby, and it's like the perfect thing for me. But I think one of the even cooler things about the game is the writing. Because a lot of times in roguelikes, they're pretty bare in story. Dead Cells super bare. Like there's some lore stuff. But this has so much unique dialogue for every character, and every time you die, when you talk to everyone, they're referencing what has just happened. There's some stuff like I saw someone talking about it. There's one of the first bosses you fight her a lot. She's one of the Furies. Her name's Megra, and one of the times if you defeat her, you can kind of upgrade your stats in this mirror that are like the things that you carry with you. It's like upgrading your health, upgrading the money that you start with at the beginning of each run. And she references if you hadn't gotten so much help from that mirror, you wouldn't have beaten me. But this guy who was playing was like, I wonder if I go in and reset all of that shit and go and beat her again without all of that, if she'll call back to that. And she totally does. Like, she refers back to this conversation that you've had. So it's just this game that has these sprawling and branching conversations that are all conditional upon things you're doing, which makes the world feel really alive. The art is just, talk about fuckable. All the character designs in this game, when their portraits pop up, you're like, Jesus.
Oh, we're talking about that new waifu Breath of the Wild game now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, Genshin Impact.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
Which I did download today, actually.
I also have it on my,
I haven't played it yet, but I saw the icon and I was like, Katie, heads up.
But yeah, Hades is really great. And I've played a bunch on Switch, but I'm kind of holding off because I know that cross save I think is coming this month, so I can import all my stuff from Steam on my Switch, which will be great. But yeah, definitely recommend it. The last thing I'm going to recommend, it's just two things. There's shows on Hulu. I think I've talked about them before, but I finally got around to watching their second seasons. Rami and Shrill are both fantastic shows. Rami is about it's a kind of an autobiographical thing. This guy's a comedian. He's not a comedian in the show, but it's basically he's Muslim, and it's basically just a story about him kind of finding his place in the world and in his religion, and kind of the conflict between those two. And it's extremely relatable. And the second season is less comedy and really gets into some really deep shit that I was not expecting. But Mahershala Ali is also in it, who fucking rules. And then Shrill is about, it's starring Adie Bryant. She's on Saturday Night Live for a long time. But it's basically, again, a movie about her, or a show about her coming to terms with herself and her place in the world, especially as a plus size woman, and like all the kind of bullshit struggles that are just built into the world around that. And Adie Bryant is fucking just delightful and good, and that show's really fun. So check those out on Hulu. Justin, what'd you have for us?
A couple things real quick. I've like taken recommendations that you guys have done, actually. I think, did you guys talk about the Neil Cicerega?
Oh yeah, on last
week, yeah. So I listened to his newest album because Tyler Harris texted me and was like, "Hey, you should check this out." And I've listened to it like I think 6 or 7 times since you texted me on Friday. I think maybe.
Yeah, it came out on Friday,
or Thursday.
I think, so, yeah.
Which one?
Today is Sunday,
Mouth
Mouth Dreams.
It's like the mashup guy.
Oh, yeah, you sent me that. Yeah.
I love that so much. I haven't listened to the other albums yet. It's just the newest one, Mouth Dreams, and oh my gosh, it's so great. So yeah, if you haven't checked any of that out yet, definitely look into that. I also listened to I can't remember the name. Tyler McKinley, you recommended this guy a couple weeks ago. The
Is it
country,
the one that he recommended before? Orville Peck?
yes, Orville Peck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I listened to some of his stuff on Spotify. Loved it. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. Also, excuse me. Finally got around to playing some Tony Hawk, which I am loving. I'm just about done with getting all this stuff completed for Tony Hawk 1. I don't know what it was. Like, I was trying to figure out how to change my character for the longest time. I couldn't find it on the freaking menus or whatever. I don't know. So I finally have my own like custom character now.
Nice.
Instead of just playing as Tony Hawk for like the first 7 levels or something like that. But yeah, that game is a lot of fun. I haven't played it since I was a teenager, like 13, 14 years old. It's really great.
So good.
And then the last thing that I've been like debating whether or not I wanted to talk about this on the podcast because it's pretty niche, but I am so in love with it that I still want to bring it up. So I run and I bike a whole bunch, and it's been a lot harder to bike recently with my schedule and it getting dark so early. And what we ended up doing is we purchased a trainer that is basically like it turns your bike into a stationary bike, and you can bike on that. But there's a program out there called Zwift, which is it's like a game that you ride your bike in, and it's gamified workouts, and it is the coolest shit I've ever experienced. Like it pairs with my trainer through Bluetooth. It pairs with my watch that has my heart rate sensor on it, and like so it keeps track of like your power that you're putting out, and it changes its resistance. It changes your trainer's resistance based on like what's happening in the world that you're actually biking around in. So they have like this fake world called Watopia that like you go and, yeah.
It's okay.
Tell
Yeah.
me what
yeah,
you
I'm
want.
familiar.
What I really want. But yeah, it's amazing. It's I don't know, like it feels like the future. It's so
That's
fucking
awesome.
cool. Just to be able to be in there, and like if you have a hard time being motivated to work out, like again, this is pretty niche, and it's like it's definitely not something that everybody should go out and buy all of this stuff. But holy fuck, it's so much fun, and it like you don't even really think about the workout that you're doing while you're doing it, because there's like the in-game currency is called drops, like drops of sweat, and you earn it over time, and you can buy like cool new cosmetics for your bike that you've got in there. Like there's got the Tron bike that you can unlock for your character, and you can enter races. And
So it's not like a first-person thing. You actually like, have an avatar.
yeah, there's an I mean there is a first-person camera, but yeah, it's an avatar. You're riding, like you see a bike, a person on a bike, and
Now have little screens in front of them. Which I
Yeah.
think is hilarious.
well, if that's if you're doing a workout, because you can just do a free ride in the world, and it's like mapped to some. Like I found out today that they've mapped it to like some island in the Marshall Islands, I think. I don't know. Like it's so like you're actually like the distances and everything are being calculated, and they like I've got that tied to a couple other fitness apps that I use to track things, and so like you legitimately are tracking distance that you biked and speed and wattage and everything. But I love it. I wanted to bring it up because it's so cool.
That sounds
I don't
cool.
know if it's really a recommendation. Like if you can go for it if you want to, if it's an interest. But yeah, it's awesome.
Rad. Gwen, what did you have to recommend for us?
I'm gonna start with a music.
Oh, music.
Music. So what I like in my music is not having to think about it. I don't want to think about the lyrics. I don't like. That's not what I'm there for. So like I haven't even listened to Hamilton yet because I know I have to
Dying a little
sit
bit.
down and listen, and I don't want to do it. But Sigur Rós
Oh, hell
is
yeah.
in particular, yeah,
Jonesy, my dude. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
1999 album AGAETISBYRJUN. Not even gonna try. But I've been listening to this album when I have a bad night of sleep. Sometimes I just decide I'm not gonna sleep. I'm gonna doze, and I'll be less miserable. This is the music that I doze to,
Nice.
and it's really nice and weird. I I just like it. So
What-
Sigur Rós.
Written in a
What,
made-up
like,
language. So.
got you to pick that? Like,
Truman sent it to
oh,
me.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, I never would have found it on my own.
The Sigur Rós album with the 3 naked dudes on the front, just their bare asses. That was like the first album I allowed myself to break the rules with on my mission. And 3 weeks later, I was just listening to Plans by Death Cab for Cutie. So, what I'm saying is it's a slippery slope, Gwen. And if your mission president finds out,
You're gonna be listening to Death Cab
Damn
pretty
it.
quick.
I've already been breaking so many rules.
yeah, you had kids.
I'm gonna get sent home, you guys.
I love that just this slice of this conversation is being carried over from all this
Yeah,
conversation.
what the fuck?
in between.
So now we're talking about missions, and I don't have my thing that I was gonna show.
Sorry, anyways.
Do we need to take a break so you can find it?
I need to. I haven't read it to anyone in so long, and I want people to appreciate it as much as I do. It's so fucking funny.
Next thing, The Sculptor by Scott McCloud, which...
Did you finish it?
Yeah, I finished it, which Tyler gave me for the purpose of enjoying graphic novels, because I hadn't found a good one yet, other than the kids' ones that I'd read with my daughter May. So I really liked the art. So we talked about this a little bit. The image on the back of the book with the calendar falling into the sidewalk is incredible and just an amazing representation of this looming problem. So the premise is, I think Justin's the only one that doesn't know, and all our listeners, this artist makes a deal with death. I think he has 2 months to live, but he also has complete power over the materials that he works with, so that he can make his art the way he wants to and then die because he has nothing else to live for. But the way that the art was executed was incredible. And there was another, to show the passage of time, it shows 3 busts on a shelf. I stared at that for, 2 or 3 minutes before moving on, which visual art, like I'd never experienced something like that.
Sure.
Story-wise, like tropes aren't necessarily a bad thing. Tropes can be done well, but I didn't buy into the way that this story used tropes. In particular, the manic pixie dream girl just didn't work for me, and her like pregnancy dreams and his final product, and like I didn't buy it. But I loved the artwork and the execution. Last thing for this week, speaking of Orson Scott Card, The Hive by Orson Scott Card and Aaron Johnson, which is book 2 in the second series of the prequels for the Enderverse. So it's not the first Formic War, but the second Formic War. Ender is the third Formic War for the uninitiated. And it's kind of fun. It feels more like fan fiction than an actual prequel. And there's something about the 2 female viewpoint characters that bothers me that I haven't quite figured out. But yeah, it's fun.
Interesting. That's a lot of books.
Yeah, there are more that I'm not talking
Oh
about.
no, not your recommendation. Sorry, I was talking specifically about the Enderverse and just being
yeah.
like, man, I'm not fucking interested at all. I don't think. Like, I think
Really?
every time I look at it, I'm
man.
like, I liked those first 3, and then I read Ender's Shadow, and I tried to read the next one, and I was like, nah,
Oh,
nah,
are you
dog.
kidding? I love
Nah,
Ender's
dog.
Shadow more than I like Ender's
No, I
Game.
do. I like that book, but it was
Well,
the
I
second one.
I like the follow-ups
Oh,
better
yeah,
too.
no, I no.
That geopolitical shit, I eat that up.
I feel like the first one's such like a complete story to me that I'm like, I don't need to go anywhere. But
Yeah, that's me.
I
It's
did.
the only one I've
I mean,
ever
I
read.
did feel that way about The Last of Us. So.
Well, I think that's a
Yeah.
fine way to experience it. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. No, I'm just I honestly had no idea that there were still books around that series coming out.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff
there's
like
one that's like the Children of the Fleet takes place. I don't even know when, and it was terrible. But there's a bunch.
that. Cool. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not shooting down your record. I wasn't. I feel like
I see how it
I
is.
feel like the way I said that, I was like, Gwen, they're fucking books. But really, the way it was supposed to be was like, these fucking Enders books. That was it. It's God damn it. I'm sorry. I'm not. I read more. I experience more books through hearing your recommendations every week than I do in my life anyway. So it's good. It's good. But yeah, so we'll be back next week with Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which I'm sure will be the best movie we've ever seen. And then the week after that, I guess I'll announce this. That'll be our 100th episode. And we have no fucking idea what we're doing for it yet. But if you liked last week's episode, I assume you'll like our episode.
We're going to write a script. Saying it now.
But we're going to be
do a table read.
That's our stand-up night, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're not talking about for forever.
Very pressured right now.
We'll be bringing back a couple of old voices to the podcast.
Some famous faces, if you will.
Some famous faces. We couldn't afford the voices, but I know for sure that Matt Damon will be here, lending his face to the audio medium. And we couldn't be more excited. So there's that to look forward to. And then we've got some other plans after that that'll be really fun that I'm excited to kind of figure out and start in on. So, but yeah, until next week, you've been here with me, Tyler Harris, and
Tyler McKinley.
Gwen Hammer.
Justin Hammer.